The street was quiet in the late afternoon light, its calm shattered by the flicker of red and blue that bathed the neighborhood in a tense glow. Officer Brent Holloway stood rigidly on the sidewalk, one hand gripping the wrist of a young boy who looked no older than 13. His name was Elijah Carter, and his basketball shoes still squeaked faintly from where he'd come to a skidding stop on the concrete just moments ago. The ball he'd been dribbling now lay abandoned in the grass nearby. "You expect me to believe that, kid?" Holloway scoffed, his laughter cold and sharp. "Your dad's in Special Forces?" Elijah kept his chin raised, his eyes meeting the officer's without blinking. "Yes, sir. He's on his way." "Sure he is," Holloway sneered, fingers tightening just a little more. The boy winced but didn't flinch. Neighbors peeked through blinds, some phones already in hand, but none stepping outside. The hum of the patrol car behind them throbbed like a warning heartbeat. Elijah knew this script. He'd lived versions of it before. "Where'd you steal that bike from?" "You don't belong here." But this time was different. This time, the cop didn't just question. He grabbed. The boy had been riding home from practice, his school's logo still faintly visible on his damp jersey. No speeding, no swerving, no reason. Just a fit-the-description moment in a suburb that liked its lines clear and its residents clearer. The officer's radio crackled. "We'll take a ride downtown, sort this out." Elijah's stomach dropped. That phrase. He'd heard it in news stories. Sometimes it didn't end at downtown. Sometimes it didn't end well at all. Then came a sound. Tires screeching. A black SUV cut across the road behind the patrol car, skidding into a hard stop with the authority of someone used to making decisions that couldn't be questioned. Holloway spun around, hand drifting toward his belt. The SUV door swung open. Boots hit pavement. Measured. Deliberate. A man emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, and moving with the precision of someone who knew how many steps it took to disarm a room without lifting a weapon. "Dad." Elijah breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. The man approached. Command radiated from his stride, his uniform partially visible beneath the open Jaquita tactical insignia on his sleeve catching the dying light. His name was Master Sergeant Damian Carter. Holloway stepped forward, posture uncertain. "Sir, this is police business. Your business is harassing my son." His voice was low, controlled, but each word struck like a hammer. "We got a report of a stolen bike." Kid fit the description, Holloway's partner offered, stepping in with hands slightly raised in placation. Damian's gaze didn't waver. He reached into his coat and pulled out an ID, flipping it open with a practice snap. "You want to run mine too?" The silence hit like a freeze. Holloway leaned in. His eyes widened. There it was. The real deal. The insignia. The clearance level. The years of service. There was no mistaking it. The smugness drained from his face. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. "We were just," Holloway began, but Damian stepped forward. "Just what?" "Teaching my son another lesson in how the world sees him." Elijah stared at his father, at the tension in his jaw, the barely restrained fury. "Sir," Holloway said quickly, raising his hands. "No need for this to escalate." "You're right," Damian interrupted. "So uncuff my son. Now." The cuffs came off. Elijah rubbed his wrist. It still tingled. The patrol car backed away, its departure silent, heavy. The neighborhood returned to stillness, but the air remained charged. Damian placed a hand gently on Elijah's back. "You okay?" Elijah nodded, voice thin. "Why is it always like this?" Damian's answer took time. Finally, he said, "Because some people need proof before they offer respect. But you don't owe them that." They walked home in silence, the streetlights flickering on as if reluctant to expose what they had just witnessed. The next morning, the story wasn't over. Damian Carter sat across from Police Chief Marissa Vaughn, who had requested an immediate meeting. Her office was modern and minimalistic, a digital photo frame flashing scenes from departmental award ceremonies. "I got the body cam footage," she said, folding her hands. "It's not good." "I didn't need footage to know that," Damian replied. "He'll be suspended pending investigation." Damian leaned back. "I'm not here for a suspension. I'm here for reform." The chief raised an eyebrow. "You're a soldier. I would think you understand protocol. And I'm a father, he said calmly. That outranks protocol. Over the next weeks, Elijah returned to school, where whispers of what happened rippled through the halls. Some kids were proud of him, called him a legend. Others kept their distance, unsure if they were allowed to believe a 13-year-old black kid could have a hero for a dad. He didn't speak much about it, but his coach noticed something different. When Elijah played, it was no longer just about winning. It was about presence, strength. Every pivot, every pass carried a weight behind it. One day, Damian surprised the team by showing up at practice in uniform. Coach Harris, a veteran himself, gave a nod of respect. Damian addressed the team after drills. There will be days when people question who you are. You're right to stand where you're standing, and you want to explain, but remember this: your worth was never up for debate. Not theirs to give, not theirs to take. The gym was silent. Afterward, Elijah walked with his father to the car. Did you mean that? About worth? He asked. Damian stopped, turned. I meant every word. I want to be like you, Elijah said softly. You already are, his father replied. But that wasn't the end. 3 months later, Officer Holloway stood in front of a review board. Damian's testimony, combined with public pressure and a particularly damning internal report, led to disciplinary action. But Damian didn't celebrate. He didn't want a man fired. He wanted a system changed. He was invited to speak at community forums, schools, department meetings. At one such event, a young girl raised her hand and asked, "What do you do when someone doesn't believe you just because of how you look?" Damian paused. Then you walk anyway. And if your voice shakes, let it. But never stop speaking, because the day you believe them is the day they win. Back home, Elijah was working on a school essay titled "The Strongest Man I Know." He didn't mention the uniform or the medals. He wrote about the night on the street, the hand on his shoulder, the words that stayed long after the patrol car disappeared. And somewhere in the last paragraph, he added, "My dad doesn't need to prove anything. Neither do I." Back home, Elijah sat at the dining table, the soft hum of the dishwasher in the background as he worked on his school essay. The title at the top of the page, "The Strongest Man I Know." His pencil paused, hovering just above the paper. He didn't write about the war zones his father had survived or the high-security missions carried out in silence. He didn't mention his father's medals or the top-secret clearance badges that had once seemed like magic. He wrote about that night on the sidewalk, the blue and red lights, the grip on his wrist, the way the neighbors watched but didn't move, and the way his father had walked through all of that and shaken, unflinching and undeniable. He wrote, "My dad didn't have to raise his voice. He didn't have to fight. He just showed up, and the truth did the rest." As Elijah finished the last sentence, he looked up. Through the window, headlights swept across the driveway. Not just any headlights. A patrol car. Elijah's stomach turned. Damian opened the front door before the knock even landed. His body blocked the doorway, tall and calm. Officer Holloway stood outside. Not in uniform. Not armed. He looked older than Elijah remembered. Not in years, but in spirit. "I came to apologize," Holloway said, voice rough. "I was wrong. I know that now. I made assumptions, and I crossed the line." Damian didn't move. "My son saw you laugh in his face," he said. "An apology isn't something you get to offer like it erases what happened." "I don't expect it to," Holloway said quickly. I've started working with the department's community outreach. It's part of the review board's mandate. I've been listening to kids and parents. I see it differently now." Behind Damian, Elijah appeared in the hallway. His eyes locked with Holloway's. "I don't want a handshake," Elijah said, his voice stronger than it had been that night. "You won't get one," Holloway answered. "But I needed to look you in the eye and say this. You were right. About your dad. About who you are. And I didn't treat you with the respect you deserved." There was a long pause. Then Damian stepped aside. "You don't fix this with a conversation," he said. "But maybe this is where you start." Holloway nodded once, silently. Then he turned and walked back into the night. The door closed behind him, the soft click echoing in the quiet. Elijah stood there, heart pounding. "Dad, yeah. Did you believe he meant it?" Damian thought for a moment. "I believe he saw something that changed him. Doesn't mean I trust him yet. but it means he might be walking in the right direction. Later that night, Elijah reopened his essay. He crossed out the last sentence.